Whether you are on an adventure or at the downtown cafe, your answers are no more than a sniff away. Dog Training 360's purpose is simple: to teach you why dogs do what they do, as well as the action steps you need to take to have better communication, connection, consistency, and conceivability with your dog.
Today we're going to talk about the heat and how it impacts our dogs and how it impacts us. And I was at a vet workshop, if you will. It was all on heat and talking about heat stroke and what to do if your dog gets heat stroke. And the vet really terrified a lot of people because they just like, oh my gosh, we can't take our dogs out. And he didn't talk about how you prep them for the heat. It was more, what do you do if there's heat stroke? What happens? How do you treat it? You shouldn't do certain things, and not that the dogs are okay. And, for me, my dogs are out a lot, and I keep them out intentionally because we like to do outside things, and I want them to be able to regulate themselves before we hit the road and get them out so much. So when they learn to regulate themselves in the heat without, any energy put into it, then they'll play when they feel good, and then they're down when they need to cool off. And so I think it's more important about not what to do if your dog gets heat stroke, but how to prevent it, and that the heat is okay. So Shannon, you've got a shorter nosed Frenchie. Talk a little bit about what you do for him, and where's your worry, and what how do you handle that in the heat?
Sure. His nose is short. That's what we call brachiocephalic. It just means that they don't have the full long muzzle that other breeds of dogs have, and it affects when they're panting to cool themselves off. They don't have as much area in their mouth because their nose is short, and so they can't efficiently cool themselves by panting.
Yeah.
So you just have to be more careful about situations that you put them in. So like I wouldn't just all of a sudden go on a trip to like southern Utah and do a 20-mile hike with him.
Yeah.
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 But he does the same things that all my other dogs do. I let them out in the day. Always they have a midday outside time that's like from at least noon to 2, and then most of the time they're like at noon they're out, and they're out for the whole day.
Yeah.
Because dogs just love outside.
Yeah.
And why not, let them be out and have fun. He goes on hikes with us. He went herding with us.
Yeah.
The same as all the other dogs for the same amount of time. And so I just try to watch him and just make sure that he's not getting overheated.
Yeah.
But I try to help him not get overheated by conditioning him to the weather and living our life the way that we do.
Right.
Going on walks in the day,
Yeah.
And I wouldn't take him on like a 3-hour walk, like if it was over 100 degrees.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But would I take him on a 3-hour walk in the evening when it's cool and it's more like 75?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just try to be logical and not extreme in my activities.
Right.
I just try to do the same activities that are just part of our life every day with everyone, and try to be safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're not, you wouldn't do those extreme things anyway.
No, myself, no, I definitely wouldn't go just say, hey everyone, let's go on an all day hike,
Yeah.
without having like prepped beforehand or walked at all.
Right.
But I'm very active. My family's a very active family. So I don't think we're maybe as active as Melissa, but
we're not as extreme.
But I mean, we do the same level of activity all the time, I guess.
Yeah.
And don't vary extreme one way or the other.
Yeah. No, I like it. Melissa, what about you and where you're at, and just clients and what you've experienced?
I grew up in southern Utah, and all of our dogs were outside, and nobody talked about the heat.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was kind of just like, oh, okay, it was normal, and everyone knew how to live with it, and we were living in the heat, and the dogs did along with us. And when I was born, and for a while, my early life, we lived in St. George, and we had 3 Shar-Peis.
Yeah.
And they were used to St. George heat.
Yeah.
They lived in it, and they and my parents, we took them on like little hikes down in the ravine, and it was just normal.
Yeah.
But they lived in it all year round. They were used to it. And
Right.
And then growing up and then coming here, people are so worried about the heat that it took me by surprise.
Yeah.
Like, really? You're worried about the heat?
Yeah.
Just live with it. And of course you have to adapt. Like, I'm not going to take my dogs on a midday run
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to do that.
Right,
But
exactly.
getting used to the heat and just living with it and accepting it just like we accept the cold.
Yeah. Yep.
It's funny that we're so worried about the heat and
Right.
not the cold. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
Yeah.
And so with my dogs, they're outside majority of the day.
Yeah.
They have their outside time. They love the heat. We go on bike rides. We go on hikes. And with clients, it's a lot of people have been asking like, oh, mornings because it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
We've walked them all winter.
Right.
We've adapted through the spring.
Yeah.
As the temperature has increased, they're getting used to it.
Yeah.
And even the clients that have 2 dogs that are outside majority of the day,
Mm-hmm.
like while they're at work, the dogs are outside.
Yeah.
And so I go and pick them up, and they're laying in the heat, just like loving it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they find the sunniest part of the yard to lay in.
Yeah.
And then when I go on a walk, people are stopping us saying
Yeah.
it's too hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, you don't know what the conditions that this dog lives in, so
Right.
there, to be that. But also, yeah, I mean, judging that, you don't. It's not.
You don't know their life.
Yeah,
Right.
Like you don't
exactly.
judge people on other
Yeah.
things about their life, so
Yeah.
why judge them about when they walk their dog?
Yeah,
I know. I think it's just so funny, and I just kind of
yeah,
And another thing that this is the time of year that I just laugh because everyone is so obsessed with their dog's pads.
yeah, yeah.
Just worried about. I guess in the winter too, everyone think but dogs' pads are tough. They've evolved thousands of years, and we're ruining them.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, go look at the store. How many oils and how many
Oh.
creams and how many booties that you can buy for your dog?
Yeah, yeah.
It's absurd.
And have you ever put cream on your dog's feet? I've never
No.
put anything
No,
on my dog's
No.
feet ever.
no.
Ever in my
we
life.
had a cut pad and we had some antibiotic cream, and that's pretty much, and
Right?
a little bit of wrapping until it stuck, and then, I mean, it was almost like when you're, you get a cut on your tongue or something, and it like heals that fast.
Right.
That's really how their pads are if you
tough.
allow them to be normal.
I have
Right.
a booty as part of my first aid kit.
Uh-huh.
So, like, if they get hurt
Yeah,
when
right.
you're out, you can put the booty on until you get, like, to
Yeah.
where you can clean it.
Yep.
And that's the only time I've ever used the
Yeah.
booties in my whole life.
Right.
Is just in my hiking stuff as part of first aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's thinking about like if we always wore shoes, even in the house, and then all of a sudden had to go walk on gravel,
Yeah.
we would all be tiptoeing.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
dogs, they're even better at getting used.
Yeah.
Like they have evolved.
Yeah.
Like I just think it's the funniest concept.
Yep.
Of I have to put this cream on my dog's pads and and like the Iditarod, yeah, they have shoes because
But not the whole run.
but not the whole run exactly.
No, it's dependent upon how the
Yep.
dogs are doing, and
Yep.
we need, or the amount of time that they're going to be on it. And that's, what I was going to say is I've had more but more sensitive feet on my dogs when we've been in extreme cold,
Right.
not extreme heat. Like
Right.
we've been in some pretty extreme heats. My shepherds, like full coats, and they're totally fine on the heat. But in 40 below in Montana, they're dancing. Their pads are being burned
Right.
from the cold.
Mhm.
Right.
And so, but it's random because wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're going to Montana, we need to put boots on. It was, let's see where they're at today. And some days it was boots on, some days there were nothing.
Mhm.
And sometimes it was moments to moments. So, usually first thing in the morning, boots are on because it's really cold up there. The Italian Greyhound in the cold, he had
Sure.
his boots on. In the heat, like nobody, like we didn't, they
Yeah.
sweat through their pads. They need that. They need to be able to regulate their heat, and they'll do that through their pads. And so I've had more struggles in extreme cold
Right. Exactly.
than ever in the heat. And even my dog's not feeling well in extreme cold, where they just want to hunker down and conserve energy. Where the extreme heat, they can regulate that. They
Right,
can,
they know
and
how.
they'll pace themselves, and they'll move their feet. Just if you condition them to it, for
Right.
sure. Melissa, what's been some of the struggles with just dogs in general that you've been working? And we're not even in the heat. We're not in the dead of summer here in Utah
Not
right
yet,
now.
yeah,
I
no.
mean, we're not even close to hitting it.
Yeah.
What some of the struggles or some of the advice that you've had to give people with getting the dogs out?
Get them out.
Yeah.
Every day, get them out. Give outdoor time.
Mm-hmm.
The heat of the day, let them out in the yard.
Yeah.
I've stolen. Well, not stolen. So it was during a lesson, and
Yeah.
I took their pee pads.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's hot outside, so now he's peeing inside.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't happen.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yep.
Get your dog used to it.
Yeah.
Go out, do the little things. Don't. A lot of people kind of planning for the farmer's market,
Mhm.
like a day at the market,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to walk during the day. They don't want to do anything during the day.
Right.
And big situations like the farmer's market adds extra stress to your dog,
Mm-hmm.
which puts stress on their system.
Yeah.
So that's an extra thing to build up for.
Yeah.
Thinking of where
Yeah, I
are you
like that.
putting your dog into.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just going to go sit out on a field.
Right.
You're going into chaos.
Yeah. Yep.
So you need you need to prepare them even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
For that added stress.
Yep.
But don't fret about it.
Yeah.
Because then your dog's going to know you're fretting about something, and so then there's
Yeah,
a
they
threat.
don't know it's the heat.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just going to go, oh, okay, it's hot. Cool.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
Don't you think though that the dog is happier doing more regular things, like say you have a garden and you
Right.
went out and worked in the garden and had the dog come out
Yeah.
with you
Right,
and do
yeah.
stuff in the garden? Your dog would like that a lot more than going to the farmer's
Oh,
market.
1,000%.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
or taking a little walk to walk down to the library or
Yeah.
your local little
Yeah.
park and then
Yeah.
walk home. Like the dog finds more joy in the more simple everyday life outside
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
than extreme human outdoor
Right.
things.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
The human stuff is stressful.
Yeah.
And also I'm very much like, one of my pet peeves is when I'm working or when I'm hiking and everyone wants to stop every 30 seconds to give their dog water.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they're so concerned about shoving water down their dog's
Yeah.
throat.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yep. Yeah. I tell people all the time, wet their bellies,
Right.
get the pads wet, and move on, because drinking doesn't cool your dog down.
Well, you should have your dog drink before you go.
Hydrating your dog correctly all the time
Yeah,
is
more important.
more important. Just like us.
Yeah.
We shouldn't just all of a sudden go, well, we need to pack a bunch of water and drink a ton because we're outside. You know, I
Right.
mean, you should always be drinking what you should be drinking, just
Right.
like the dogs.
And so I think about, like, when I'm running a marathon, I don't really drink that whole time.
Yeah.
I hate.
Yep.
I throw up. I get sick. I
Yep.
cannot.
Yep.
The day before, I drink a lot,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then I drink after. But
Yeah.
during it,
Yeah.
And so it was like 2 weeks ago. We went down to San Rafael Swell, and we did some backpacking and we did some
Mhm.
mountain biking, and we didn't we had water, but
Yeah.
our dogs, we fed them a lot before.
Yep.
And we freeze some of their kibble and ice
Mhm.
cubes and
Mhm.
give it to them
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
And so they're chewing on it, they're playing with it.
Yeah.
But the most importantly, we squirt their bellies.
Mm-hmm.
They went and jumped in the river, and then they were cooled off.
Yep.
And
Yeah, nobody's drinking excessive where they get sick because they're drinking so much, and I think that's a great point, Melissa, because I remember as we were training for Ragnar, I always had water on me, but usually by the end my bottles were still full,
right.
and because I really worked on hydrating throughout, and I've always done that with my dogs.
Right.
My dogs don't drink excessively because they're hydrated correctly through feeding and what we're doing.
That's just the thing too, is people are obsessed about water and it makes their dogs obsessed about water.
Right.
Like I have times where I will offer my dog water and they won't drink.
Yeah.
They don't need to drink.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fine. But
Yeah.
then people get obsessed and they're forcing
Yeah.
their dog to where we have problems with these dogs that are just drinking, and you have to tell people put the water away and only
Yeah.
put it out at certain times
Right.
because they create this obsession with drinking.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, I take water and I'll offer it to the
Yeah.
dog, when we're out, different times. And if they don't drink, that's fine. They don't
Yeah.
need to drink. They're fine.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, even, taking Patsy out on the trail this weekend, she was bounding through some of the irrigation fields and stuff, but she never, really stopped to drink. I mean, she was just keeping herself cool and regulating herself. And there's a lot of gravel road that we went on, and, she would just hop off and get in the grass, and sometimes the gravel was cooler than being in the hot grass, because the grass tends to be hotter
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
throw off more heat
Mm-hmm.
than the pavement does.
Yep.
So, definitely, I think we overthink things all the time, and that we're doing extreme things that cause the problems instead of just, we all need to hydrate correctly. we all need to get out and exercise and do things and be active. And if you do it in a normal way that's good for you, it's going to be good for your dog, and not get so wrapped up about, whoa, their feet. No, they don't wear shoes all the time, so their feet are totally fine adapting to that. And so my biggest advice is stop worrying about overheating your dog and start worrying about how we can help them adapt and adjust to the weather and in what's happening in the weather.
Speaking of overthinking, what do you tell people who shave their dog's dual coats or that are so worried about their coats? And I feel like that's also a big thing. It's like, my dog's hairy, I need to, or making the hair versus fur and stuff like that.
So with my 2 shepherds, there were times that they even had still blowing their undercoat, and I'm not helping them. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't brush it out because they got rid of it as they needed to get rid of it. And then, people get sent out to got a brush and the shedding and they're throwing their coat. Yes, you need to groom your dog, but shaving your dog that's a non-shaving grooming need for the dogs, that you're taking away their air conditioning and you're taking away their heater. And so sometimes they need that full coat even in the summer to warm themselves up because they've cooled themselves too much. Or, it definitely is the way that they regulate their thermostat. And dogs are bred and have evolved into those things. Well, you have a full coat. You're a husky. You have a full coat, but it will keep you cool in 120 degree weather.
Because it insulates both ways.
Right. That's right.
Well, looking at the coat, you have the wiry on top.
Yep.
And then that softer, the lightweight stuff that always is when they're blowing out that people obsess over.
Yep.
And so, when I see people that shave their labs or shave their Australian shepherds and stuff, it's
so not
rough.
Good for their bodies and their systems, and but it's understanding that and understanding how the body works. But funny story, and it's funny that this brings up because my husband has this beard that everybody likes to talk about, and it's everywhere, and it's like people fall over themselves trying to get his attention to talk about his beard. But one question that a lot of people ask that don't have an experienced beards is, isn't that hot in the summer? And he's like, no, it's not hot. It's like, we better shave our heads because it's hot in the summer. It's like, doesn't make sense really.
No.
And so it's the same. It's like understanding how animals' thermostats really work, and being aware of it, I think, is more important than, oh my gosh, we got to shave them, they're hot. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Let them naturally be the way nature.
Because the hair protects them.
Exactly.
From everything.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's a great question. So think about what's right. Think about, don't go out and do extreme things. Do what life balance is that makes the most sense, but don't get worried about the heat.
Yep.